Welcome to Front and Center Ice, presented by Run Pure Sports. I'm your host, JC Zargo, joined as always by the man himself, Natefy. Natefy, how you doing today, man?
Good. I was just out in the farm field trying to find a wife out there in Wisconsin. There's a couple of them out here, but that's a story for another time. I see sweet Travis on here with us, filling in for Matty Ice. Definitely appreciate that. And we're getting some engagement on Twitter with one of the key cast members of Farmer's Got a Wife. So that's always fun times. A good little show there at about 12:30 at night. We're all sitting on the couch, cooked out of our minds on edibles, and JT turns on the show. Farmer wants a wife, and it's been a good little fun bit here, and it's fun to see sweet Travis finding the cast crew and getting some engagement on Twitter. But ready to break down this NHL slate here for sure. Should be a good one, and definitely appreciate Mr. Mangoat hopping on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to start the show there, Nate. I think a lot of people are going to be lost, but those who get it, get it. Matty Ice could not be with us today, so nice enough to join us is the man-gone himself. Travis, how you doing today, dog?
Good. I got the very late call up. I think I said like an hour ago I could join. I was busy on a different call, so I'll admit you're going to get a very fresh look from me, but I'm excited to dive in and break this down, figure out the NHL slate. I saw we got a healthy amount of games. It's a solid 10 gamer. And then after this, I got NBA to do. It's only a 4 gamer in the NBA streets. Be sure to check out the NBA Hardwood show. Also be sure to check out the Up the Lock show, which will be on Watch Playback tonight. And JSU will be on there, who just won $100,000. So definitely worth giving that a watch as well. But we'll definitely pick some NHL winners here. Excited to look at it and really dive in with you guys. Because again, you're going to get a very, very early look from me for sure, trying to kind of dissect this slate.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm here for it. So glad you could join us. I mean, Travis is he's clutch coming in. I mean, we even, little look behind the curtain for y'all, we even started the show without him. Like, yeah, if he's a couple minutes late, whatever. He joins during that 30-second intro. Like, this man gets it done. So we appreciate having him. But yeah, with the huge slate today, we'll just jump right into it. First game, Minnesota Wild visiting the Philadelphia Flyers.
Not on the main slate. Not on. Just skip it.
All right, I just got to give the pick because it's just too easy. Is Minnesota Wild, 60-minute money line, even money. Wild are playing tremendous, even though they're in Philly. Just wanted to plug that for sure. All you bettors out there, that's just an easy move for sure. Nades wants to move on to the 7 o'clock slate. So the first game I got, it's a doozy. Montreal Canadiens at the Boston Bruins. Swayman expected in net as well as Allen. Should be a shit pump in here. No reason to really overthink it. But Natefy, with this being the first game on your slate, I'll let you kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's definitely going to be the chalk of the night. I just ran my stuff in Sabre to get a little better look. I'm sure Mangone will see it here shortly when he runs his stuff. But about 60 to 70% of the teams are slamming in Boston for a good reason. I mean, Montreal's terrible. They've been bad recently as well. Obviously, a bunch of different injuries and stuff like that. It looks like our RPS hero, Jake Allen's going to be in net, and he's coming off back-to-back negative 15 and negative 13-point games. So now he heads into Boston to face Boston. Doesn't bode well here for him. So I definitely think Boston makes a lot of sense here. The only issue is these guys' price tags are up there, and if they're kicking the crap out of these Montreal Canadiens here, the big dogs aren't going to run out there. They got bigger aspirations this season. Obviously, Boston's looking like the Cup favorites right now in the loaded East. So they're going to have a tall task ahead of them to make it out of the East, and that's what their sights are set on here. So if they are up, these big dogs aren't going to get the run that they normally do. You're not going to see Pastrnak and Bergeron and Marchand and those guys out there for 20 plus minutes. So I do think they make a lot of sense. Bergeron's price tag at 6,600 is just a joke. You're playing cash games. I think you start there for sure. That's too cheap for him. But overall, Pastrnak has literally destroyed Montreal in the past. Obviously, a fantastic player. The only issue is he's 9,700, so almost costs you a second mortgage there to play him in a game that I don't think is competitive. So I'd probably stay away there. I actually do have some interest in these depth guys here for Boston, though, and it starts with Tyler Bertuzzi. 3,900 for Bertuzzi. he's playing well right now. Get some power play run. I think that's definitely my favorite Boston piece. He's gonna get extended run too, especially if this game is out of hand. Averaging right around 3.5 shots per game over his last 5. I think that makes a lot of sense there. I like him quite a bit. And then, I mean, like I said, Bergeron, super cheap. DeBrusk, super cheap as well. DeBrusk has been on an absolute tear lately as well. So if you want to go to the Bruins here, for sure, definitely makes some sense. They are going to be the chalky stack of the night. Typically, I don't like chalk too much on big slates, especially like tonight, 11-game slate here. So Bertuzzi for me, kind of move on. Montreal, I'm full fade of Montreal, but you can certainly play guys like Josh Anderson, things like that, these cheap Montreal piece. But I think there's better spots to target for sure on an 11-game slate than go to Montreal side, because I see this like a 5-1 hockey game.
Bertuzzi's goal scorer prop paying out plus 210. Would you take that risk?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. He's got averaging right over 3 shots per game over his last 5, so he's active when he's out there. Sees around 16 to 18 minutes. Could see him get an extended run here as well. Actually, the last game he played the Canadians here, he did have 5 shots on goal, but that was obviously with a different team. He wasn't in Boston at that time, but certainly I don't hate that. I mean, almost a little over 2-1 on a goal scorer is not terrible for sure.
Yeah, really no value here from a betting perspective. Boston should smash, but even grabbing that puck line is only paying out minus 160, so I don't love that. And you never know with these games, to grab 2.5 is too risky, and there's no reason to think there's going to be an upset. Boston's won their last 8 meetings against Montreal, so there's no reason to think anything's crazy going to happen here. So I would just stay away. Goal scoring prop's not bad. Certainly any Boston player isn't going to be a bad look in a game like this, but they're just much better slots on this slate. And I'll toss it to you, though, and get your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll admit, when I ran stuff, I didn't get as much Boston as I thought, but like I understand looking at things, I'm definitely seeing Boston will have ownership. Like, no doubt, like they're going to have some ownership. I don't know what it's going to be, but and they're good plays, right? I mean, we know if you just kind of line up on paper, right? Like Boston against Montreal, like it's always going to be in the conversation, especially at the price tags, right? One thing that's kind of encouraging that I noticed when you look at their lines, Marchand, Bergeron, and DeBrusk, if you put that together, I mean, that's $19,000, $500, right? That's a pretty cheap price tag for that top 3, right? It's just you get them at a really, really nice price. Also, that kind of fits in a build where, one, you could either go balanced, or 2, if you get enough value in there, you can kind of get 2 really good lines in there. So I think that naturally will push some of the Boston ownership up because of that. Also, if you look at that second line, the second line for Boston, the Pastrnak, Krejci, and then Zacha, that's an even cheaper line. Again, I think they're both good. I'm definitely still kind of diving in and figuring it out. When I ran stuff, I didn't see any Boston that I loved. I could see it as like a really nice 2-man stack maybe. But for me, I'm not like dying to get there, at least from like the 4-man. I typically like to run 4-man stacks. One thing I'll also call out, from what I'm seeing, I think there's some really good late night hammers tonight that I might kind of go to a little bit. So that's a nice way to gain information. It's not always I don't force it, but when you have really good plays later on, and then you can gain a lot of information with 5 games starting at 7 to see how things play out. And I can watch how the Boston chalk plays out and then maybe make a pivot if I feel like I need to, if all these absolute chalk pieces smash. That's a little bit of a game theory move, but I think those are better on like the 5 or 4 game slates when the chalk is really condensed, when you see plays that are like, 40% owned. Sometimes you get line stacks that are 40 to 30% owned at times. So that's probably better for more of a late, a smaller slate where it's spread out angle rather than this one, but it is something to kind of consider a little bit. But Boston, they're fine. I'm not going to talk too badly about them. I see them more as like a mini stack right now for me, not as much at the 4-man stack at the moment. Part of that too could be, and Nate, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When I typically try to pair up my 4-man stacks, I like to get a cheap lineman in there. Are there any cheap line guys on the Boston from like from a defender standpoint? Are there any cheap defenders that you can get in there? Also, another question to ask you, because this could be a good one. because we've talked about it on the shows. Are there any good setups where it's like you get like line 1 with power play 2 or power play 2 with line 1, like really good cross correlation where you can get 2 from the one line and 2 from the other? Are there any of those on Boston?
Not really on Boston, but there is Hampus Lindholm is their top D-man. He's 5,200, I believe. That's a fine price tag. He's playing good right now, but Grzelcyk is the one that's popping for me at 3,400. Skates on that top line. Doesn't see power play run or very much of it, but he does skate with that full strength on that top line. So at 3,400, you can certainly he's a threat to score as well.
That's not bad. The Stone scenario is when you can get like a 4,200 guy that's on like line 1 and power play 1, right? Like that's so like you do have to take a risk, right? Do you spend that money on the guy in the 5K range to be able to get that opportunity? Or do you go down to the guy who's not going to get the power play opportunities? That's another thing. But those are things that I do like to look at when I kind of make some decisions in like tiebreaker scenarios if I can find it. So figured I'd ask you about it as we're kind of diving in to just kind of understand how good is Boston in this spot, because there are a talking point on this slate. For me, again, I think I'm more so going with, if I play it, it's like more the mini stack scenario, not as much the full stack.
Right on. All right, I like it. I like a little strategy, a little game theory from Mangone. Pretty much same conversation as always when we talk Boston, so we'll keep it moving. Next game I got St. Louis Blues at Detroit Red Wings. Kind of a crappy matchup. Two teams just dealing with mediocrity all season long. Neither are going to be in the playoffs. Neither have a shot at a top draft pick. So quite a terrible season in that essence for these teams. Another layer that makes this game just impossible to bet on is Hofer and Hellberg will be in net for the two teams. Combined, these guys have played 15 total games. So bit of a question mark there. Not really sure what you're going to get. Nathan, I'll just toss it back to you, especially keeping that in mind when you got two inexperienced goalies playing, or guys that don't have much track record on the season. How does that affect how you play things?
Yeah, I actually think we see some goals in this game. These two teams both just saw each other a couple of days ago. The game kind of slumped a little bit. 3-2, I believe, was the score. I can see this game being like a 4-3, 5-3 type hockey game here. But just two crappy teams that do have pieces that can score, especially with Hellberg and Hofer and Nat here, two backup goaltenders. I do think we do see some goals. Hofer did play, it looks like, last game against Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, on the 21st. Had 28 saves, let up 2 goals. So the game log watchers might see that and click his name too. I'm not going back to that for sure. I'll tell you that right now. But overall, I do think you see some offense in this game. Braden Shen is super cheap. He gets power play run. He's going to be lower owned because he did get bumped to the third line on full strength, but he does get second power play run. And St. Louis kind of splits their power play time anyways. It's not like in Edmonton where the top power play takes up about 1:40 of the 2-minute power play. St. Louis kind of splits it a little bit more. Jacob Vrana has been absolutely incredible for St. Louis since he's come over. But he did get priced way up at 5,100, so don't love that, but it is a GPP play for sure. Brandon Saad, he's on that third line with Braden Shen, so you want to talk about a little mini correlation. You could go a Brandon Saad, Braden Shen combo there at very cheap pricing. Saad is going to get top power play run as well. So there's definitely guys you can go to on St. Louis. On Detroit side, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, Maurice Seider, and Jake Wallman for me. Wallman and Seider is kind of a coin flip at D-men. They both are, Wallman's 47, Seider's 54. They both get power play time. Wallman's on second power play. Seider's on the top unit. But Wallman, I've played this guy all the time. I was coring this dude when he was right around 3K, and literally he had the block shot bonus and shot and goal bonus. It felt like every game. So he's got the upside there. And Dylan Larkin on home ice for sure against the Blues and a backup goaltender I definitely like at 6,700. And then you can pair him right up there with Lucas Raymond. Lucas Raymond, 4,100, top line, top power play run. So definitely some good cheap little mini stacks here. I don't know if I full stack either of these teams, but I mean, looking at my matchup sheet, Detroit has allowed over 4 goals per game last 5 on home ice, and same thing for St. Louis. They're up almost at 4 goals against as well on the road. So I do think we see goals here. I would tend more towards mini stacks just because it's tough with these guys. Correlation kind of doesn't get there, and they do have the star studs like Larkin and stuff, so the depth isn't there. So a lot of times the scoring can be condensed when you have teams like this. So full stacks don't really make sense. So that's where I'm at. Mini stacks more, and I do think we see goals in this game for sure.
I like it. Would you grab that over 6.5?
I'm terrible at betting overs. It's been the story of the show.
Yeah.
Last game, obviously, 2 days ago went under, but I probably just would not take a bet on the over. I just don't get a good read, but I do think we do see some goals. But it could be, 4 to
6 goals.
Yeah, 4-2, and it still goes under. So I mean, you kind of need to get to 7, obviously, to win that bet. And 7 goals is a lot of goals in the game.
Yeah. All right, solid. Travis, man, any thoughts from you on this bit of an odd game we have here with not really?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nate's really hit the nail on the head when he kind of broke down that, like, I think it's the perfect spot for, like, when you're doing 4-2s or 4-3s, like maybe the 1-off or maybe the 2-man. There's definitely options here that you can go to. Definitely correlating it up is not the easiest, but here's some of the guys that I think could be interesting options in the 1-off scenarios, right? For one, let's start with like Dylan Larkin. If you have the money to get Dylan Larkin with another one of these options on the team, that's perfectly fine. I don't know if I see myself spending for the defenders. If I have the money to get like a Wallman in there who gets, line 1 and power play 2, great. Or if I had the money to get Sider in there who's on both, yeah, sure. I totally take him as a 1-off scenario. But the guys that really make sense in 2-man and 1-off scenarios are like David Perron, only 4,300. Lucas Raymond, that's another guy that I think you have to consider there in that spot. Andrew Kopp it's Kopp, right? Andrew Kopp at 3,800. I mean, he's on line 2 and power play 2 at $3,800. Now he is at that center position, so it depends how you build out your lineup. You might not have that spot. Maybe you need a wing more. But point I'm getting at is like they're just cheap guys that have the ability to be on a top power play and on a pretty good line. So I just really do consider that when kind of building out my lineup. So I think they're definitely in play. And you can make that same case on St. Louis. They're very similar teams, right? They have defenders like Justin Falk, who's obviously a guy you have to spend on, while you have Sider, who you can spend on. They also have Dylan Larkin, who's expensive. And then the Blues have who? They have Jordan Carew. So very similar teams in that aspect. When it comes to some cheap options that you can go to, there are options. Kasperi Kapanen, he's at 3,500. You get him on line 2, and you get him on the power play for just a dirt cheap tag. So like those are the things that I look for in 1-off scenarios or in 2-mans. Again, I think these are kind of better 1-off guys where like an Andrew Kopp is probably one of my favorites here, where he can easily have a 2-goal game and be a huge difference maker for you at like single digits. So definitely someone that I like here in this spot. And that's just how I would handle this game. It's mainly because you're not taking like a 3,500 guy or a 3,300 guy who's just on like line 1 or only on line 2 and doesn't get power play, right? He at least is getting time on the ice, and it's 2 crappy teams against each other. I mean, we did the playback with Eric Crane, and you know what Crane said? He said the Blues suck, just stack against them every night. Like, don't ignore that. The Wings are definitely in play, and I like some of these cheap options for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, Cobb's certainly a good call. He sees over 20 minutes of ice time a game, about 2 minutes of power play time, depending obviously how many power plays they take. But 3,800, you can certainly do worse. He's pretty active too in terms of last 5 numbers, averaging right around 2 shots per game, which is good. So I mean, he's got a floor of around 5 DraftKings points, which isn't great. But I mean, for 3,800, that's $1,300 more than min price.
How valuable is center today? Is center very valuable? Like that'd be the question I'd ask.
I mean, center is always super valuable. Obviously, you only have the 2, and then if you use a third one in the utility. But yeah, I mean, Patrice Bergeron is going to be super chalky. I think for sure at 6,600. So a lot of people are going to use one of their center spots on him for sure. And then we're going to talk about some of these late night hammer spots with like Vancouver, Winnipeg, Dallas, some of those guys. So center is certainly viable, but I mean, it makes some sense. personally, I think the Perron and Raymond mini stack there for 8,400 for both of them. Yeah. You double your ice time there, but they do share the same power play, so there's still correlation. So I think that, I mean, 8,400 is the price of some of these top end wingers by themselves, and you're getting two dudes with extended ice time for sure.
Yeah, I saw a 2-man that looked pretty good. Like, it looked like a good setup. Again, it's still early that I'm building in, but that was definitely like, when I go through and look at some like 2-man stacks, I like to see like, what are the guys, like if you have like 10 teams, or are there a bunch that pop up together, right? And like those two definitely seemed like they were kind of popping up a bunch, which shows how good of values they are. So I'm definitely interested in Detroit more than St. Louis, and it's from like more of a 2-man perspective or as a one-off option. So they're definitely going to be a team that's high on my list today.
Right on. I like it. Great insight on a game that's hard to get a read on. Pushing along, though, this is one I'm excited for. Toronto Maple Leafs visiting the Florida Panthers. Panthers have been playing extremely well. They've won 6 of their last 8. They're currently playing musical chairs with the Pittsburgh Penguins for that final wild card slot. But what really kind of adds to this game, on top of it being a potential playoff matchup, is the games these two teams are coming off of. So Florida just got spanked 6-3 by Philly, and Toronto's coming off a 7-2 loss to the Islanders. So both teams, 2 playoff teams, hopefully. How do you think they bounce back here? What kind of adjustments will they make, and who ultimately will come out on top? Mangone, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you threw me off. You said the Flyers game, correct? No.
Maple Leafs, Panthers.
Okay.
Panthers are coming off a 6-3 loss to the Flyers.
Okay, I did hear the word Flyers. The Flyers aren't even on the stage. So what am I doing? But you caught me. You caught me responding to a DM of someone who can't get in the Discord. So hopefully we can get him in there, because hey, that's one great thing about Run Pure Sports, right?
Absolutely.
The Discord chat and all the fun times in the NHL chat that you guys like to have, and of course answering all the NBA questions and breaking it all down, all the late breaking news there. But Maple Leafs and Panthers is obviously going to be a pretty high total game. 2 teams that a lot of people will want to target, but the problem is, do you want to pay those price tags, right? Do you want to spend $9,700 for Austin Matthews? Do you want to spend $8,900 for Matthew Tkachuk, right? They're just expensive. So, and when you have expensive options, man, I talk about this in NBA DFS, like sometimes when you have expensive options, well, if the values don't get there, your expensive options might not work, right? And the only way that they break the slate is if they score 3 goals, which is, again, not something that happens on a nightly basis. And it's a very big slate, so there's a lot of different routes that can win. It's not like it's a 3-4 gamer, and if one dude just drops, 3 or 4 goals or 2 or 3 goals, they're guaranteed to be on the winner, even if a value busts. So there could be some high scores tonight, and I do think that these guys are good plays, but I just don't know if I'm going to get there today. I think it's going to be a little tougher for me to get to these options because the price tags are going to make it difficult. And again, I think there's some late night hammers that I'm going to like a little bit more. So for me right now, I just don't see myself getting this game. It's one of those games that feels like maybe a bit of a better real life game than a DFS one. And part of it is the pricing, right? That's the issue. Everyone has a price. I mean, if you told me Snyder costs, $1,000 in NBA DFS, well, what it could do for my full lineup to play Snyder might be worth it, right? We've done it with so many different sports, right? When we have price tags that are just too cheap on options, we then consider it. And sometimes the price is too damn high. And for me right now, it just feels too high to play this game. It does have a good total. Maybe Nades has a better conviction on this than me, but I'm just noticing that these plays are just not popping up as much. Maybe if you have really cheap stack and then you can like find them as like one-off options, sure, but I don't think I'm going to get here today.
Yeah, fair enough. So from a betting perspective, it's definitely an interesting one. The home team has won the last 4 meetings between these squads. Florida's playing extremely well, so that's another notch in their column. However, moneyline playing out minus 130, and I don't really want to touch the 60-minute line, which is paying out plus 115, because last 3 games between these two teams have gone overtime. Over as well. I mean, last meeting saw 9 goals, game before 5, game before that saw 13. So betting on 8 goals just seems terrible too. Really tough read on this one. Nadesify, what do you see?
Yeah, I love Florida here at home. Nobody's going to play them. Toronto's been awful on the road. I ran 150 teams in my setup here, and Florida hit only 4% of stacks. So that tells me right there, nobody's going to play these guys. And I mean, you look at Carter Verhaeghe's box score. Obviously, box scores doesn't mean anything, but the dude hasn't scored less than 16 DraftKings points in 5 games. with two of those approaching 30. He's just 6,900, averaging close to 6 shots per game. I mean, I'll sign up for that at 6,900. Obviously, to Chuck, he might be my favorite spend on the whole slate at 8,900. I mean, the dude has 40-point upside. Nobody's going to play him. Average is right around 5 shots per game, almost hits that shot on goal bonus pretty much every game. But it is going to come down to lineup construction. I haven't built teams yet, but at the surface, I certainly love. I broke this game down in the playbook, and I wrote up Barkov, to Chuck, Verhaeghe, and Brandon Montour. All 4 of those dudes are playing absolutely incredible right now. Toronto's giving up on the road over the last 5, close to 4 goals per game, and their expected goals against is right there too. So it's not like a fluke. Sometimes that's what I look for. But on the flip side, I mean, Florida, they're 30th in the league at 2.3 goals against for expected goals. So they're just getting bad puck luck teams against them. So I think this is a spot where Florida rights the ship here. Nobody likes getting embarrassed. The Islanders are a way better team than Philly is. And Florida just got embarrassed by Philly. Obviously, they were in Philly. Toronto getting beat by New York is different. I think the Islanders are actually a good team. I think Philly sucks. Florida can probably see that as well. So I think they come out here and try and punch Toronto in the mouth. So I definitely like the top 6 for sure. From Florida. And I like a little cross correlation like Verhaeghe to Chuck and Barkov. They all share the top power play, but obviously Barkov's on the top line, and Verhaeghe and Chuck are on that second line. And you can actually, looking at the optimizer, if you leave Chuck off, you can actually build some pretty sick teams and go like Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Montour, Barkov, something like that. Save some salary. You can still get some good secondary pieces too. The Kraken have some value that we're going to talk about later too. That makes things work and stuff like that. So I definitely think Florida makes a lot of sense. I'm full fading Toronto here. I'm not going to chase, especially at their price tags. I mean, they're super inflated, and I'm just on Florida here, and nobody's going to play them. So I do think there's some upside there for sure in GPPs.
Yeah, to be fair, Nate, if you have the money, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think to be fair, like if you have the money, this is definitely not a game to ignore, right? It's a 7 total, I believe, right? And there are how many 7 totals on the board? Is it 2?
Just this one.
Okay, it's the only one. Yeah, so like if you have the money, great, but it is tough to jam in. And when you play Boston, if you decide to, you're not gonna be able to get these guys, right? Like it's almost impossible, it seems like, because when you play those balanced mid-tier guys, you're really gonna have to punt some positions. So just worth calling that out. It's not gonna be easy to kind of pull that off. So if you have the money and you have enough value, this is definitely in the conversation as a spend up. For me, I haven't gotten there yet, but again, I'm a little behind when kind of trying to build. The prices are tough though. You have to have the value. That's going to be the key. You can't kind of build more balance than mid tier. You really have to have value in order to make this work.
Right. Yeah. Can't argue with that. Love being on the same side as Nate. So leaning Panthers, hearing Nate's advice say that, I will absolutely be on that Florida money line tonight. Pushing along, an interesting one. I'm thinking it's going to be great for both betting and DFS. Not often that happens. Chicago Blackhawks visiting the Washington Capitals. In net for the Blackhawks is Anton Khudobin, I believe is how you pronounce it. 36-year-old keeper, only played in 9 games last year, making his first appearance of the season. I mean, the Blackhawks are just doing everything in their power to lose. The odds are great for Washington. This just seems like an absolute smash spot. Over 6 looks like a great bet, and that Washington puck line is a tremendous option. But Nades, are you seeing something I'm missing?
Yeah, this definitely I do think is kind of a Washington smash spot here. I have a hard time always stacking up Washington. Their lines are just completely a mess. And a lot of the scoring resides obviously around Alex Ovechkin, which we all know you can play Ovi any slate he's on. I mean, the dude just went for 42 games ago. And now he plays the Blackhawks, who he's literally owned. Last game in December, these guys played back in December, early in the year. Ovi had a hat trick, 5 shots on goals in 17 minutes on the ice, scored 47 DraftKings points. So, yeah, I mean, you can always play a guy like Alex Ovechkin. I think that's an elite one-off option there. So like that's when you're talking like playing to Chuck, that's where you can start looking at things. I do think to Chuck's going to be much lower owned because of this reason. Ovechkin's $300 cheaper than him against the Blackhawks, but I do see Washington getting a decent amount of ownership. Obviously, any team that plays Chicago gets ownership, any slate, for a good reason. Chicago is obviously tanking and trying to get Connor Bedard, like the rest of the league is, or I should say the bottom half of the league is all trying to get him because he's been the best prospect that we've seen in years for sure. So it's definitely interesting. Rasmus Sandin is still 4,600. He's been incredible since he came over to the Caps. Connor Sheary's cheap at 3,600. It's a dart play. He does get some power play time. But overall, I mean, I think this is like a Dylan Strome, Alex Ovechkin mini stack here, or like a Ovechkin one-off. I don't have a ton of interest, to be honest with you, stacking up the Caps. It's just it's tough in terms of correlation and things like that. On the Blackhawks side, I mean, it's a full fade for me. I'm not trying to sign up for a team that's trying to tank. I mean, they're all cheap. So if you land on them as a one-off, like a Tyler Johnson, something like that, I don't hate it. But overall, I mean, it's a full fade for me on the Blackhawks. And Washington, I think, is more of a mini stack or like a one-off Ovechkin type for me.
Here's a thought. Now, obviously, Ovechkin goal scorer -130. No one wants to touch that. Worth sprinkling half unit, maybe quarter unit on 2+ goals, paying out +430.
Yeah. So I mean, he had three goals last time against Chicago. He just had 2 goals 2 games ago. Has 3 goals in 2 games. I mean, certainly you can. But typically I don't like betting a ladder too much in hockey, just because obviously if they're killing them, I mean, they ain't going to run Ovechkin out there on the ice a ton if they're up by 4 or something like that, right? Obviously Ovechkin could get there early. I just typically never bet the 2+ goals, things like that. There's just so much variance, and you can just grab better value with some of these other goal scorers that I look at typically.
Fair enough. Mangone, what do you have for this game?
Yeah, I think Nate said it pretty well. I think Washington is mainly mini stacks, and there is full fade of the Blackhawks. And if I play them, I'm going to look for how can I correlate them well in 2-mans? I think you could do Ovechkin with Dylan Strome. I think that's perfectly fine. I think Strome as a one-off isn't bad too. You could do Tom Wilson as a one-off. I wouldn't hate that. Other spots that I wouldn't do Sandin. I wouldn't mind as a one-off too. If you had like a one-off defender, I don't hate the line setup that he's on. Other scenarios that I would maybe do in mini stacks. I think you could get away with like a Backstrom with an Oshie together, because again, they're on power play 1. They're also on line 2 together. And let's say Ovechkin does help them, right? Get some assists and stuff. Doesn't mean he has to be on the winner. He has to do a lot for the price. So as a 2-man, I really think that could work. And one really, really cheap stack that I think could work, especially against a bad team. Sometimes when you play a bad team and you're up a lot, well, you can kind of take the brakes off, right? And have some of these guys, it's kind of an NBA DFS where DeAnthony Melton crushed the other night, right? Well, DeAnthony Melton's a starter, but also you probably let him close the game out and kind of do his thing. Well, I could see that with some of these line 3, power play 2 kind of players. And 2 specifically, that would be a pretty interesting mini stack to me, would be Kuznetsov and Craig Smith, right? They're on line 3 and they're on the power play 2. As like a 2-man stack, I think that's kind of intriguing. Again, I'm not saying Washington is this for sure jam-in team, but I think they're in the conversation from a value perspective and from more of a mini stack. And that's kind of how I would play it. I just correlate it up in the correct ways. That's how I'd kind of approach this game. And then I would just move on and look for some more 4-man stacks. I haven't talked about too many yet, but I promise we'll get to them.
Fantastic. Before we move on, just a quick plug, as we are presented by Run Pure Sports. Nate's Defying Matty Ice, breaking down the hockey slate every day. So for our fantasy players, especially miss some time, so you're not getting all the information on the show, come join, become a member, get information every day, every sport, one price. I've started putting betting plays on the sheet. So if you're into the NHL action, you got to be out here. Mangone, he'll touch hockey, huge on basketball. What else are you doing this time of year, Travis?
Yeah, I mean MLB is literally around the corner. I mean, I think it's a week away. So I'll be doing MLB stuff, of course. We have golf content as well. I had my golf course up this week, so the match play is awesome. I absolutely enjoy it. So I'm enjoying sweating that out right now. I have some pretty good teams so far. So hoping that kind of continues. And like I said, NBA is definitely the sport that I'm deepest in, but yeah, definitely dabble in all the streets. And that's one thing that's great about being a Run Pure Sports subscriber, right? You get all the sports for one price. We're not hitting you up because it's baseball season and saying, hey, it's time, here, give us $400, right? It's just one price. You can pay weekly, you can pay annual, you can pay monthly, whatever you want. We'll be giving you all that. We have a great Discord chat for that. That way you can play all the sports. And we even have League of Legends, right? We got that. We got it all over here at Run Pure Sports.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly what I was going to say. Literally, no matter what you're into, we got a great crew covering XFL, USFL about to kick off. No matter what, we got you covered. And if we don't, that's why we got Discord. We'll still give you your opinion. We got Kurt doing EuroLeague. Like, if you can bet on it, we're playing it. So come become a member. You can code NATES515, Jargo15. What is it, Mangone15?
Yes, I'm Mangone15. So any code gets you 15% off. Be sure to use it.
Fantastic. Appreciate you hearing our little advertisement, but we move along now. Tampa Bay Lightning visiting the Ottawa Senators. It's kind of an interesting one because you never know what Ottawa's going to do at home. On paper, it seems like it'd be a smash spot for Tampa Bay, but you never know what the Senators are going to cook up on home ice. So, Nadesify, you got any looks for the underdogs in this one?
Yeah, I actually do because Elliott looks to be in net for Tampa here, and we call him Smelliot over here on the DFS side. Last time he faced Ottawa. Obviously, it was last season, but they got shut out by the Sens for 4-0. Elliott got pulled, I believe. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of going to fade this game until I saw Vaz wasn't going to start for Tampa here. So I think getting dog money here on the Sens at home. I mean, looking at the numbers, Sens take the second most shots on home ice in the league. They got the 6th best power play on home ice. Tampa's got the 32nd, which is league worst in penalty kill on the road. So nobody's going to play these Sens. And I mean, they make a very, very high upside contrarian stack. Because I mean, everyone sees Tampa Bay, right? In the history, they've been a great hockey team for years upon years as of late. So, but I say it all the time. I mean, the Sens top 6 can go with anyone in the league. Timmy Stu, Brady Tkachuk, Claude Giroux, Batherson, DeBrincat, Pinto, all these guys, any of these top 6, I think makes sense. Tkachuk at 7,700, the dude's averaging close to 6 shots per game. I think he makes a lot of sense. Kind of at that sub 8K price range where it's a little bit of a tier below some of the guys we talked about already on the slate that are up near 9K or over 9K. So I think that makes some sense. Claude Giroux is averaging about 4 shots per game over his last 5. He's 5,500, so I think he makes some sense as well. Going to get some power play time. He's not on the top power play, but he does still get power play time. Bath Bomb is like we like to call him, Drake Batherson. 5K flat for him is super cheap. Same thing, averages. I mean, everyone on Ottawa just chucks the puck. That's why they're second in the league in shots on goal. So the shot on goal bonus, obviously 5 shots on goal, you get that bonus on DraftKings, which is huge. All these guys are live pretty much for that shot on goal bonus. So I like any of these top 6 for sure. I think Ottawa wins the game outright. And I would lean towards the power play stack for sure. So Mangone likes to get the cross correlation there. So like that's where a guy like Drake Batherson is on that second line, but top power play in a good matchup. So you increase your ice time there because I do see the Senators getting a decent amount of power plays here. Tampa gives up close to 4 power plays on average per game on the road. So you put these guys on the power play, they have the worst penalty kill in the league. Ottawa's going to score at least 2 or 3 here for sure. So I like them quite a bit, and nobody's going to own them either.
Fantastic. I love it. While you were breaking that game down, our boy Tanner Smith dropped his best bet article on the website. He too is on Ottawa, so that's looking like a fantastic look tonight. Nice dog at home. But Mangone, what do you have on this one?
Yeah, I think this is a game that so I saw some at Tampa Bay's prices. I will say a Stamkos Killhorn like 2-man is not a terrible idea. Both on same lines, nice little correlation. I know I've like literally talked about the 2-man stacks the entire time. And I think like Claude Giroux is like a 5,400 one-off that you get him on like, you get him on the power play, you get him on a nice line 1 or 2. It's a beautiful scenario for him as a one-off. So if you want exposure to this game, I think there's ways to do it. But again, no 4-mans for me here. Not really dying to get in this game, but there's going to be goals scored. And when I know there's a game that's going to be goal scored, like I talked about the Detroit game, right? We talked about how that game's going to have some opportunities. Finding those guys like a Giroux who's kind of cheap. Another option too on Ottawa that I think is not a bad cheap option that I would dabble in a little bit is there's a defender I saw, and again, I'm not as good with the names. It's the Bath Bomb. No, it wasn't him. No, it's actually Sanderson. That was the one I liked. Batherson, I understand at 55K. But for me, like, I try not to dip into that 5K range as much unless I have the value to do it. I haven't built enough like lineups and look to see if I can tinker it out to change it. But at 3,900, I do think Sanderson is kind of intriguing just because, again, he's a 3K guy that you can get on as a defender that you get on a line 1 or 2, and you get him on a power play 1 or 2. And that is something that I look for in cheap defenders as one-off or 2-man. So calling that out there, I think there are some pretty good plays in this game. But again, no 4-mans for me. We're getting there, I promise.
Right on. So I believe, final game of the early slate, unless you guys have anything else to add on that before we move along.
Nope.
Cool. Final game of the early slate, New York Rangers visiting the Carolina Hurricanes. These two teams have built a little bit of a rivalry of late, just being top dogs in the Metropolitan Division. Jersey sneaking in there, though. But always a good time when these teams meet up. We got Shesterkin against Anderson in between the pipes. Always a great game. Pretty hard to predict, though. Carolina, always talk about what a horrible fantasy team they are. But Nadesify, what direction are you going tonight?
Yeah, I mean, 11 games. We talk about it in NBA, NFL, all the sports. I mean, some games you can just cross off. This is one of those games I'm crossing off here. I mean, it's bright red across the table outside of Carolina's power play matchup. So if you go to anyone, I would grab like a one-off or something if you go to any of them, like a Sebastian Aho or Nakis or one of those guys that get power play run, top power play for the Canes. Nakis is probably my fave at 5,400. But overall, I think this is a full fade for me. Teravainen, 3,700, going to get top power play run too. I guess you could pull as a one-off. Has pretty decent history, especially for the price tag against the Rangers. But I think this is a way better real-life hockey game than DFS game. But it is interesting to know Carolina has the best home power play in the league as of late over the last 4 games, about the last month or so. And the Rangers penalty kill on the road is towards the bottom third of the league for sure. Sitting at 23rd in the league. So if they do go on the power play, I can see that's where Carolina's scoring is likely going to come from. So those two cheapies on that top power play and Turbo Teravainen there and Martin Nakis, I think makes some sense. But overall, I don't have a ton of interest. I mean, Stefan Noesen is min price for the Hurricanes at 2,500, third line, but he's on that top power play. So if you want a stone min dude, he has actually been playing good. He's averaging close to 3 shots per game over his last 5. You can do much worse than that at min price. So that actually might be my favorite just for a sheer value piece. Has some pretty solid history against New York Rangers as well. But Rangers full fade for me. Carolina pretty much a full fade outside of those 3 cheapies that are on that top power play.
Fantastic. Yeah, really only betting love I like in this one is for the goalies. I like both guys to hit their save prop. Anderson over 24.5, Shesterkin over 31.5. These two teams playing on Tuesday. Crush those numbers. You know Carolina is going to put at least 34, 35 shots on net. So as long as Shesterkin does his job and stops those pucks, we should have some cashes there. But I got no clue who's going to come out on top. Travis, what kind of insight do you have for this game in North Carolina?
Yeah, Carolina and the Rangers is definitely not a game that I'm like dying to get to today. So I think this, we can make things quick sometimes. Let's keep moving on because there's games I want to talk about later.
Fantastic. Moving on to the late one, Seattle Kraken at the Nashville Predators. I'm sorry, Seattle's just completely fallen off. They are, as well as Seattle, both teams really, well in the playoff hunt, both just taking a step back. What do you think's going on here, Nate Fireman? What's your take on these two teams as they meet up?
Yeah, I mean, both teams are struggling. I'm not going to chase the Nashville explosion game against Buffalo. That was kind of an anomaly there. I mean, they lost 3 straight games before that, got shut out 7-0 by the Rangers, and then came into Buffalo and just literally steamrolled the Sabres, who aren't a very good hockey team anyways. So that was kind of crazy to see that explosion game. I'm not going to chase any of those explosion games like Matt Duchene, Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista. I'm not going to chase any of those. I mean, Evangelista had 45 DraftKings points at 4.2K, literally career high for sure for him. I'm not going to chase any of those dudes. I think the Kraken do win this game. Just the expected goals against for Nashville are absolutely horrendous, up over 3.5 goals per game. And their actual goals is significantly lower than that. So they've just must have had good puck luck, things like that. I mean, is Saros in that? Yeah, so Saros is in that. Saros always makes some sense on home ice. He's an incredible goaltender. He did get owned last game against Seattle. I can see kind of that same thing happening here. I definitely give the lean to Seattle. Jared McCann is my favorite piece, 5,300 top line, top power play. Dude's playing incredible hockey over his last 4 games. Think that makes a lot of sense. But, I mean, Seattle is your mini stack candidates. I know we've talked about a lot of them, but, I mean, in my stuff, my model, my projections and stuff that I ran, Seattle's the second highest owned stack behind Boston, and a lot of the teams are going Boston, Seattle, with guys like Alex Wenberg, Eli Tolvainen, Vince Dunn as a D-man, things like that, obviously, because you need the salary savings. Those guys are all 3K. Jared McCann spits in there a little bit, but he is 5,300. So if you are playing them, I definitely would not play Boston and Seattle paired together unless you're like playing cash games or something. That's just not how I build teams. Vince Dunn, 4,700, I think is a fair price tag for him. Top line, top power play. Nashville, full fade for me. I think the Seattle guys make cheap one-offs or two-man mini stacks for sure.
Yeah, fantastic call out, because while Nashville did have that 7-3 win, you look at their 4 games prior, they had a total of 5 goals. So, sometimes things just break your way. Some nice tilt of the ice for them in that one. No reason to expect that here. Mangone, what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some really good value here with Seattle. I don't know if I need to go with the 4-man, but there are some really good plays. It's mainly looking at the Seattle side. And again, this is a pretty high total here. On Seattle, when it comes to some values, like Dunn is 4,700. You get him on line 1, line 2. You get McCann, line 1, line 2, right there at 5,300. Really like those plays. That could be a solid 2-man stack. A one-off guy, you can go Matty Beniers, 4,100. He, again, fits that kind of category as like a one-off guy that you get him on to line 1, you get him on power play 2. Don't mind that. You can pair him as a 2-man with Eberle as well. There's just so many different ways that you can go and attack these guys as value plays. I think Alex Wenberg, you get him on line 2 and power play 1. Who's not interested in that? Same thing with Tolvin, like line 3 and line 1. Just there's so much value here in this spot, and they have a really high total that, like, how do you ignore it? Like, it's just, you can't. So when building out teams, I'll definitely be looking at some Seattle options. I'll consider it as 4-mans. I'll consider it as 2-mans for sure here on this slate. When it comes to the Nashville side, I did see Nashville had popped up a little bit for me when I ran stuff, and I was surprised. So I can kind of pull it up here right now. And I think it's mainly because one, I don't think Seattle's not as great. 2, when we were at the Run Pure Sports Party, I heard Fallick talk about how all their problems have been solved since they made some trade. I believe it was the gain of Tyson Barrie, that they've gotten better and have improved. And Nate, is that true? Have they actually looked better, or is K Fallick being biased there?
A little bit of a homer take. They lost 4 games straight before that and scored 5 goals total in 4 games, and then it literally exploded. But they do have some young prospects. Like Tommy Novak is probably my favorite. He's been good. He's 5K though. Overall, I'm not paying for any of these guys. That's why I hate Luke Evangelista at 4,600, I think makes some sense because he has been solid, but he just had a ceiling game, and I hate chasing guys off of the ceiling game. Tyson Barrie, I'd never played Tyson Barrie even in Edmonton. I mean, he's a power play specialist mainly. So I don't know what Fallick's seeing. I mean, Cody Glass has literally been reincarnated, it seems like, this season. So I guess if you want to say Cody Glass, he's gone through a stretch there where he was solid for 3 games in a row, but all 3 games, I mean, they lost. So I don't know what Fallick is saying, but I mean, maybe a 7-3 Buffalo kind of shook the dust off a little bit for Fallick's eyes, but I don't know. They haven't been great to me in my eyes.
Well, one thing you're going to call it again, this is definitely a good spot where there's like those 2-mans and the one-offs that are just like dirt cheap that could do a lot at their price, right?
Jordan Gross as a D-man, 2,700. Yeah, definitely makes some sense for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
He gets second power play run as well at 2,700.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good call out there. You got where there was a couple I had seen that I wanted to talk about. I know Cody Glass. Cody Glass isn't amazing, but he is on line 1, line 2. So Tyson Barrie too, getting line 2 and power play 1 is pretty good. So I wouldn't ignore that. Duchesne getting 1 and 1. That's obviously really good. There's a lot of options here to consider again in like the 2-man one-off. If I do play a 4-man, it's likely on the Seattle side, and that could do a lot for your full lineup. And I'm assuming, Nate, there could be a really good route on the Seattle side to kind of getting exposure to the both the lines, right? I think you're able to do that. I'm trying to look now.
Yeah, Seattle has a lot of good cross correlation like that because they literally put their lines in a blender and mess stuff up, which is fine. So yeah, you can get like guys like Bjorkstrand on a 3rd line, but top power play, or like Vince Dunn, obviously top line, top power play. Jared McCann, same thing, but like Beaniers and Eberle are kind of split the full strength line and power play. So you can do a lot of cross correlation, and all these dudes are cheap. I think their most expensive guy is McCann at 5,300.
Yeah, exactly. So you could do Schultz as a cheap defender one-off at 2,800, or an add in with like a core 3 guys if you wanted as like a 4-man. But one thing I think you could do that would be really nice is you can pair Eberle up with Matty Beniers, right? They're on line 1 and power play 2. And then you can pair it with Vince Dunn and McCann, who are on line 1 and power play 2. So you get the full line 1 with exposure to both power plays, no matter what, which I think is kind of a nice little setup to have. And are they home? It's Nashville's home ice night, right?
Yeah, it's at Nashville, but I mean, Nashville traded all their pieces away, so I'm not really worried about that. I mean, they're probably just going to play straight up, to be honest.
Cool. Well, that works. Again, I do think that Seattle side is really intriguing. And again, they have a pretty good goal total on Sabre. I'm seeing the 3.5 is their line. So
yeah, I have them at 3.3 implied team total. So yeah, they're definitely, I mean, implied to score over 3 goals, and their most expensive dude is $5K. So
yeah, I'm interested from a 4-man and a 2-man staggering perspective. Just kind of depends what I end up figuring out. But I do think Seattle has a good chance of making the list for me tonight.
I like it. Appreciate the insight, especially when neither of us have a strong stand. I like when someone can come in. Moving along though, a game I need your guys' help with because it just doesn't add up for me. Vegas Golden Knights visiting the Calgary Flames. Vegas a fairly heavy underdog here. I know Nate Defy loves to hate on Vegas, but he likes hating on Calgary more, as we all do. They're just not a very good club. And I know Calgary a couple of weeks ago put a stomping on the Golden Knights when they were in Vegas, but maybe even money. But seeing Calgary minus 145 just doesn't make sense to me. I think this is an absolute smash spot. I think 125 for Vegas might be the bet of the night. But is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, I think you got your Vegas Knights homerism glasses on again. I mean, you stroke to the Knights more than anyone.
There's no denying they're the top team in the West. It has nothing to do with the homerism. You just can't deny 94 points.
I mean, the West is terrible, first off. But second, yeah, I mean, number one, I don't like this game from a DFS perspective. I think this game plays under the total. 6.5, I think, is too high. I think there's a negative goal regression coming for sure from Vegas. They're second in terms of road scoring last 5, but their expected goals is significantly almost 2 goals lower than what their actual is. So I do think there's a lot of negative regression coming their way. So I'm not going to be on the Knights train for sure. I think the Flames win this game for sure. I do feel like I saw it minus 155 earlier today. Must have dropped now 10 points or so. So obviously Vegas is getting Vegas money out there. It might have been Zargo's bets that moved the number, but guys like Tyler Toffoli, I think make a lot of sense. But he is expensive, 6,600. He has been incredible over his last 5 games. I don't like spending salary in a game that I think goes under the total, and I don't like very much. So I'm not super thrilled to play anyone in this game. Backlund makes some sense for Calgary, 5,900. He's been good, has some good history against the Knights as well. Rasmus Anderson, D-man, 5,800, top line, top power play, I think makes some sense as well. He's averaging over 3 shots per game over his last 5. Certainly think that's viable there. But overall, I don't have a ton of interest in this game. I do think the Flames win this game outright. One cheaper call out, Andrew Mangiapane, 4K flat, top line, top power play, did get bumped up to the top power play and the top line. He was on the third line for a majority of the season. He's a great player, 4K. I think you can certainly that's a solid one-off. He actually hit the one-off in a couple of my builds that I was looking at in Sabre. And I definitely think that makes some sense. Averages right around 3 shots per game. Gets 16 to 18 minutes of ice time as well at 4K. You can certainly do worse than him. But overall, not a ton of interest here. I think the Flames do win this game. I think there's negative goal regression coming for Vegas, so I'm not going to sign up to play any of those guys either. One dude that is stone mid, though, that I did want to call out for Vegas is – or not stone mid. He's $1,000 over stone mid. Maybe Zargo knows this dude. Must be a rookie. Pavel Dorofeyev, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm terrible with names, just like Mangone. But he's averaging a decent amount of shots. It has been good. I think this is like his 6th game or so of the year. And $1,000 over min price, you can do certainly worse than that. So that's probably my favorite Vegas piece. Gets second power play run as well. Averages right around 3 shots per game. So that's probably my favorite. Overall, not my favorite game, though.
Okay. I mean, I do hate going against Nate Defy, but I just don't see Vegas losing tonight. Mangone, you're going to have to break the tie here.
Yeah, I can break the tie by saying I don't love this game, so I don't want to play it too much. But and maybe it's because I like the under more. Maybe that's why. But I don't mind Carlson at 4K. That does seem like a crazy price on Carlson. Like if instead of going that guy you talked about, Nate, I'd just find the 500 for Carlson. Maybe yes, different positions. One's a wing, one's a center. But and center is more of a premium, like you mentioned. But that's kind of how I would approach it if I could. But I just don't need to play this game. Let's get to the good games. There's a couple coming up next, and there's one specifically that I'm definitely going to talk about a lot.
All right. Well, that'll just be a head-to-head matchup between Nades and I. You have to jump in the Discord.
Hey, how's that gone? How's that gone for you so far this year? Just got a question for the people.
Oh, what, head-to-head with you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not good. I don't deny that. I have no idea what the record is, but I know I am in the negative. Whatever.
So you're telling me I should bet on Calgary tonight, or the under, actually?
Probably. I already. Yeah. No.
Hey,
I mean, Vegas like Zargo strokes to Vegas
anyway they're drafted, right? We like winners any way they come. So if they come this way, this is how they come. So maybe I'll have to be on the under with Nades.
No, yes, Mangone can Nadesify. I don't know, man. You can't. They're number 1 in the West, so I'm not a diehard fan. I'm not stroking it to them. It's just facts. It's just
maybe you're both right. Maybe they're the best team in the West, and the under is going to hit. Right? It could be both.
It could. But no. Nate's gives me crap every time we got to talk Golden Knights. But we'll move along to 3 games left on the slate. Another one that it's interesting. Pittsburgh Penguins visiting the Dallas Stars. This Pittsburgh team just doesn't want to go away. Like I said earlier, they're swapping with the Panthers for that final wild card slot. Just when you want to count the Penguins out, they rip off a few wins. They beat some unexpected teams. Dallas, they're now tied with the Wilds for number 1 in the Central. So both got a lot to play for tonight. Dallas gets a slight edge at home. Ottinger in net. I think we got to Smith. Unconfirmed, projected to Smith. So you got to lean Dallas, but I don't know. Any love for Pittsburgh, man, going?
Yeah, Pittsburgh is not the team that I love. I'm not that interested in them. You definitely can make a case for Dallas tonight. Dallas is definitely going to be a really good play, one that you have to consider at their price. They are expensive, right? But I mean, that line of Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski, I mean, it's definitely going to be a good line to target tonight. Just the question is, do you have the money to go up for these guys? Again, he's 8,100. You got Hintz is a pretty solid option. Pavelski at 6K. He's not bad, but all three guys are above that 6K range. And the defender is 5,900. Miro, Heiskanen. I think I got that right. So
yeah, you nailed that.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive. Let's at least call that out. So if you, again, you're going to have to then maybe play Seattle with them or some other values if you want to play them on your teams. I do think that if you want to play some of these guys from these line two, let's say you didn't want to get all the exposure to it, but you want to find some cheap line two guys, Dadonov, I think, would be a pretty interesting option that you can get exposure to. Wyatt Johnson would be another one. You get him on line two and power play two. So there are interesting options here. If you have the money to spend on Dallas, great. But again, I do think I'm spending my money on another team as we're going to keep going along. There's one team I really like tonight that I'm excited to talk about. But this game isn't bad. I'm curious to see what Nadesify thinks. I do think this is one of the I think they're similar in that Bruins camp of a team that people want to get to tonight. But the question is, will they have the salary to do it? I think we have enough value to do it, but will people actually gravitate towards Dallas? That's the question. And I think Nades will have that answer.
Nadesify, let it rip.
Yeah, I love Dallas here. To be honest, I mean, it's a close spread, minus 145. So ownership wise, I don't see a ton of ownership going to the Stars. And the Stars have won one of the best home hockey teams over the last month or so, for sure. Their expected goals is right up there as well. So it's not like they're just getting lucky, things like that. Casey DeShitz is going to be in net. Our guy Joda in chat's going to post his famous gorilla throwing a big pile of crap onto the camera lens every time Casey DeSmith gives up a goal. Hopefully it's early and often here for the Stars. So I got an interesting take with the Stars. I actually don't like Jason Robertson very much tonight, which is going to be a hot take, obviously, because it's the best player in the Stars. But I really like Miro Heiskanen, Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, and that's a perfect three-man stack there. And I even think you can go and add a guy like Jamie Benn in there that's got the second line top power play. Ben's been incredible. Actually leads this team in shots per game. Or shots on goal per game over the last 5. So definitely think that makes some sense. And one of the best values on the entire slate is Wyatt Johnston for Dallas. Second line, second power play, 3,900. The dude's averaging over 16 DraftKings points per game over his last 5. Averaging over 3 shots on goal per game as well. Picks up some block shots every game as well. I think makes a very nice value play. But yeah, certainly, I mean, there's a lot of good spots here. So I only play a couple teams, usually one or two teams a night. Definitely going to have to work some things and see how it goes. Probably certainly not going to play Boston just because at the ownership, there's just a lot of other good spots on the slate. I think I'll just take the lower ownership in teams like Dallas for sure. And that have similar upside, I think. I mean, they're playing Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's always gives up a ton of goals. Especially whoever faces that Malkin line, which I do think they're going to try and put that top line on that Malkin line for sure, because Dallas does dictate the matchups here. So definitely a very plus matchup for Big Joe Pavelski, Rupe Hintz, and Jason Robertson. But at the price tag for Robertson, I'm just going to fade him and just add in a guy like Jamie Benn or Miro Heiskanen instead.
All right, fair enough. 2 games left to go. Next one I got on my slate is the San Jose Sharks visiting the Vancouver Canucks. San Jose has lost 7 games in a row, if I recall correctly. And Vancouver, they've been doing quite a bit of winning. They really kind of turned things around. Certainly too little too late, but makes for a nice betting situation here. Fairly heavy favorite, considering them on a 60-minute line. But while I dive into these numbers a little bit deeper, I'm going to toss it to Mangone. Is this your game? This is not the game,
but it's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. Well, first of all, Nate, why is San Jose popping as much as they are? It seems odd. Is it a price thing and just Vancouver doesn't play defense?
To be honest, I'm not sure why they're plopping because I think Vancouver absolutely steamrolls them.
Yeah.
It is a pricing thing, probably, because nobody on San Jose outside of Erik Karlsson is expensive. But I mean, they're the third worst in the league in goals for and expected goals for. So yeah, they're not good. Vancouver's actually been pretty solid in terms of defense as well. So I'm not sure why they're popping. That's an easy X for me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this, I do like Vancouver. Like, I'm gonna look at them, but it just depends. So JT Miller, I think he's a pretty good option that you can go to. I think Kuzmenko, he's a pretty good option. Hughes at 5,200, one of those, defenders that is in that like just enough 5K range where I'm willing to go up to it. The 6 and 7K is where it gets a little bit tougher for sure. They have some good options like Brack Bozer. He's another guy I think that you can go as like one of those one-off options. I mean, Anthony, and I'm not even going to try his name. Boviller, I think is it, but that's it. That's all you're getting out of me. That's a tough one to say. He is one that I think is a really good one. You get him on line one and power play one. And for only that 4K range, absolutely love him. I think he's a great option you can pair with Elias Peterson if you want to get exposure to him as a top option. I think he's a pretty good play. So I like him a ton. Also, you could play, if you really want, you could play like him with like JT Miller, and like Miller's on line 2 and he's on the power play where you just kind of get exposure to both lines no matter what, which isn't a bad way to go about it as well. So I definitely like the Vancouver side. Man, I am trying to figure out the San Jose stuff because I don't get it. And, typically you're supposed to, trust the opto and get it, but I don't get it. I think there are cheap price tags on guys like Thomas Hertl, right? You can make a case that his price tag at 5,400 is too cheap. And there's some of those interesting one-off options that we've kind of talked about. But sometimes I think when like a trade happens, which they obviously made a huge trade, some of these like long-term numbers don't adjust for the new situation. And it's just, this team is not as good, that they lost one of their best players who helped them be better. All these players be better. So I'm not as excited for San Jose. It's more so liking some of these Vancouver options. I like them. Not my favorite on this slate, but they're definitely up there for sure.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I'm thinking pretty heavy on Vancouver here. Just looking at their history with the Sharks, they've essentially averaged 6 goals a game against the Sharks this season. Seemed like a real easy spot. You can grab the 60-minute line at -110. And I was thinking team total, but given the odds, I think you're way better off just grabbing the over 6.5. That's where I'm at on this game. Nadesify, are we in line in this one?
Yeah, we are in line on this one. Vancouver should steamroll these Sharks and go shark hunting here. Sharks are full X for me. Logan Couture would be probably my favorite option if you're going to any of them. But overall, I have no interest in the Sharks. I think Sabre is just wrong on that one. They're not popping in my projections. But overall, I mean, you do need to trust the optimizer sometimes, but sometimes it is wrong. And man, go and hit on it. With season-long simulation data and stuff, with Timo Meier there, this team was way different. Obviously, he makes everyone better. So that's one thing to call out. Elias Pettersson is absolutely elite center option, but 8,800, I think I'll pass on him, and I'll go down to JT Miller. One of my favorite center options on the slate, 6,400 for him against this Sharks team here is too cheap. Miller's playing great hockey right now, too. Anthony Beauvillier, I think, makes a lot of sense, too. He gets top-line power play. So I actually like kind of a stack where it goes like JT Miller. Quinn Hughes is a D-man at 5,200 who's playing great hockey right now, averaging over 3 shots per game. And I heard some words that said, hey, Quinn, you need to be more active out there, and you need to shoot the puck more, and that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, the dude sees about 28 minutes of ice time, 28 to 30 minutes of ice time as a D-man at 5,200. I mean, when he's chucking the puck, I'll sign up for that any day of the week for sure. So that might be my favorite D-man on the whole slate, 5,200. I like that price point because it's kind of that mid-tier. You're not spending up towards that 7K range for a lot of these elite D-men. And I think in this matchup for sure, he should be considered an elite D-man here. So like JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, and Anthony Beauvillier, I think makes a very nice 4-man stack. You get Brock Besser and JT Miller, second line, full strength, top power play in power play. And then you get Anthony Beauvillier and Quinn Hughes, full strength, line 1, and then power play line 1. So that's your 4-man double correlated power play stack there. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you leave Elias Pettersson, who is going to get some ownership out of it at the 8,800 price tag. So overall, I mean, JT Miller 64, you got Beauvillier at 4,300, Brock Besser at 4,500, Quinn Hughes at 5,200. That's a very cheap 4-man stack and still can get a very nice lineup to round it out for sure. So that's probably one of my favorite stacks on the board at their upside in this matchup at their price tags. I think make a lot of sense for sure.
Love it. Love it. That's all we got. We can move on. I guess we saved the best for last. Winnipeg Jets at the Anaheim Ducks. And I'm just going to toss it right to Mangone to wrap things up.
There we go. This is the stack. This is it. Winnipeg. I'll admit, I'm definitely I'm all about Winnipeg. They're a team I love to play. I think they're super talented. And they're pretty cheap. Like, you get this line today at just such a good price tag. I mean, Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I don't know if that's how you say it, but we'll go with that. We got Nino Niederreiter at his cheap price. I absolutely love this team. The one thing I am trying to figure out as I've looked at teams, and maybe Nate can give some guidance, is one, Josh Morrissey's on like so many teams, which I don't absolutely love. It does make some substitutions out for a Mark Scheffley or Shoffley, whatever you say his name. I always mess that one up, but I do think you can make a really good case for playing that little cheap stack of, and you can go Connor, Pierre, and Nino Niederreiter as like a 3-man. You have like still so much money to spend. You like put in like a 2-man Seattle stack and like you could just get like the world, right? You can get so much with that. So I haven't dabbled in that too much, but it's something I'm definitely going to look at here when I get off the show, maybe even after the NBA show. But I like that little setup. Also, you can make the case. Let's say you don't love that first Winnipeg line. Well, playing Scheffley, Ehlers, and Wheeler, I mean, that's dirt cheap too. I just think this is such an elite spot for Winnipeg. My preference is the Connor, Pierre, and Niederreiter line. That's definitely the preference. I don't know what to do with Morrissey. I'm curious to get Nade's take on how to handle him. Again, I just typically have a bias of not wanting to spend for expensive defenders. So maybe he's going to tell me, listen, just put him in the stack. It makes too much sense. When it goes off, he's part of it. Definitely want to get his take on that. But I think this is a smash spot for Winnipeg against Anaheim, another team like San Jose. They've been struggling, right? We definitely smashed them. So I know they're on the road, which is a little unfortunate too. But because I typically like my guys on home ice, but I think this is a pretty good spot for a team like Winnipeg. And sometimes these teams like Winnipeg that you expect them to have it to be in a smash spot, sometimes it's not bad for them to be on the road, right? Because that way the other team is able to put enough pressure to get enough goals where you get like the full-on shootout scenario where, let's say the final score ends up being like 6-3, right? I get a lot of goals from my Winnipeg side and I get absolute smash spots. So, and this is even a great game where I think you do that 4-man stack where maybe you play Kyle Connor with like Niederreiter, and then you also play, Mark Scheffley with like Blake Wheeler, or you play Wheeler with the other guy that I'm blanking on. But either way, this is Winnipeg line 1 and 2. Like, I'm just definitely absolutely going to love. They're my favorite stack of the night.
Right on. I love it. Nateify, you in stride with Mangone, or are you going a different direction here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Winnipeg's blow-up spot is coming here, and no better time than tonight against the Anaheim Ducks. I always love duck hunting here, so I think the Jets are going to make some duck soup here for sure.
Farguar?
What was that?
Farguar?
Yeah. I don't know what that is. I'm not a duck. I don't eat any duck or duck soup or whatever you just said. So I'm out on that, but I am in on the Jets here for sure. PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, 6,100 is way too cheap. One of the best matchups for centers on the entire slate. So I love him. Kyle Connor, explosion's coming. I wrote it in the playbook. The dude hasn't had a goal in 6 games, it looks like, 7 games. So I see that changing tonight for sure. He's had great history against the Ducks. He had a hat trick earlier this year against them. So 7,400 for Kyle Connor. I mean, this dude was approaching 9K earlier this season. I kind of wish he was at home, but I think because they are on the road, maybe it suppresses ownership a little bit. But I mean, typically any team that faces the Ducks gets ownership.
All right, he's plus 120 to score a goal, so I'm going to get in there and put a little sprinkle on that. Why not?
Yeah, I don't mind a little sprinkle. He hasn't had a goal in 6 straight games, and he's got 4 goals over his last 2 games against the Ducks in this season. So like they played him twice this season. He had a hat trick, and then last game he played him, he had a goal in 19 minutes. So
tonight's the night for the Kyle Connor bounce back explosion spot. Yeah, you heard it here first. I'm
yeah, that's exactly what I wrote in the playbook. I said Kyle Connor, a pop off game is coming from him. So I love him tonight. 7,400, super cheap. PLD, you can pair right with them. They skate together full strength. Power play line 1. Nino Niederreiter was my goal call of the night as well in the playbook. He's 4,500. So like, I mean, you want to talk about a stack. Those 3 dudes, full strength, they skate together and they're on the top power play. I love that. Nikola Ehlers at 5,600 is very cheap. The dude hasn't scored less than 12 DraftKings points in his history against the Ducks. Obviously, he was out earlier this year when he was playing when they played him. So he's certainly fine. Does get that second power play run though. He's not on that top unit, which doesn't really matter. I mean, any team playing Anaheim is certainly full game for me. Regarding the Josh Moore thing, I don't know if he's right. He sat out against Tampa and Carolina, and ever since those, I mean, that was about 5 or 6 games ago, it looks like, so a couple weeks. Since his return, he hasn't approached or he hasn't surpassed 4 shots on goal. I mean, before that, he was hitting 5-6 shots on goal like every other game. So I don't know if something's going on with him. So I'm just going to pass on him at 6,800. Like I said, I like Quinn Hughes a lot for almost 2K cheaper. So that's probably as high as I'm going to go at D-men, but I wouldn't fault anyone for going playing D-men against the Ducks, especially a guy like Josh Morrissey, who was in contention. I think he's still in contention for the defensive award. I forgot the name of it, but that was my pick at the All-Star break, is he was going to win it because he was absolutely on a tear, but I don't know if he got hurt or what, because ever since he's returned, he's only averaging right around 2 shots per game, which is pretty low for him compared to what he was. I mean, the dude was hitting 6 shots on goal like every other night. So I'm going to pass on him, but yeah, certainly Winnipeg. Probably my second favorite stack on the board behind the Nucks. But I mean, there's so many elite spots on the slate. That's why I'm just going to fade Boston and just take my chances and hope they kind of kick the crap out of them. And just, if I play anyone, it's going to be some of those value guys, because I love Winnipeg. I love some of these late night hammers. So PMR is definitely going to be a thing that you're looking to have hopefully tonight, as everyone else in these early games kind of finishes and you're holding a full chamber coming in late. That's done really well for me all year. And I know Mangone likes that too with the backloading slates in NBA. So we got a little backload slate here in NHL tonight, and the Jets are going to bring us home for sure.
Right on. I love it. Fantastic show. Fantastic slate ahead of us. Before we get to best bets, as always, please do us a favor. All we ask is that you hit that like button, help feed the algorithm. But to close out our show, we're going to give our best bets and or our favorite stacks of the night. Coming into the show, I was pretty hot on Vegas. However, all the crap I caught from Nays, I'm trying to improve my best record at the end of these shows. So instead, I will just take the Capitals puck line. You can find that for about 113 over on FanDuel. I believe their odds are a good bit better than most everyone else at the moment. That's what I got. Nays, I'll toss it to you.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little off the board here. I'm going to go Jordan Eberle to score, Kraken to win, plus 330. Had a good little streak lately with these, so I'm hopefully going to keep it rolling. I think the Kraken do score some goals here. I like him to score and the Kraken to win at little over 3-1 for sure.
Right on. Travis, close us out. And again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you hopping on with us. But go ahead and give the people your best bet and your favorite stack.
Yeah, I forgot you can do the. I always like those. I was seeing how I can do it with Kyle Connor. I don't know if that's a way you can put that together.
Yeah, you have to hit the same game parlay, the little green thing on DraftKings.
I'm on FanDuel, so I can't.
FanDuel, you can do it. FanDuel, you can do it as well.
So here's the thing. You could do the Kyle Connor with the Winnipeg to win. I can't figure it out right now. So, or just Kyle Connor to score a goal plus 120, right? So we'll make that the best bet. If you want tossing the win, I do think they do win. So, yeah, I think that's perfectly fine one to bet, but we'll go with Kyle Connor plus 120. And if you want to toss in that win, I'm sure it's something similar to what Nate said. It's probably like a plus 280 or plus 300 something. So get in on that. And yeah, let's hope Winnipeg gets to the top of the leaderboards. That's my favorite 4-man stack. You'll be seeing me with 3 or 4 Winnipeg. The only reason I say 3 is I still don't know what I'm doing with the Morrissey. Morrissey is the one I'm trying to figure out. And if I can find some really good 3-3-2 or something that's like unheard of with Seattle, which I'm basically giving away probably what my core is going to look like. Yeah, that's kind of the route that I'm going here today. I want to get some Seattle value mixed with Winnipeg and then figure out what to do with the last couple spots.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mangone. Again, come join us at Run Pure. Tons of great information. Nate Defy, Travis, Matty Ice will all be throwing up their cords at the end of the night. I already got 4 bets on the sheet. We're just printing money over here. It's what we do. So as always, thank you so much for joining us. And a shout out to Mangone for the last minute edition. Always great to have him. But that's our show. Run Pure, baby.